I'd just like to thank you for joining our 20-minute talk show today. It's a big honor to have you here, ma'am. I know you have quite a busy schedule, so I thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Vaibhav. We met at IAS, and I'm really very supportive of you, getting interviews from senior leaders. It's a learning for the leaders as well as the people who listen to us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. For me, I would like to know what your journey was like. How did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
So I come from a middle class family in Kerala. We are 5 sisters and I'm the youngest. My parents focused a lot on studies. So when I finished my graduation, I was looking at doing engineering and I joined NIT Calicut. I did my engineering and our results got delayed. So we lost the chance to apply to many of the great companies that were hiring graduate engineers in those days. But I wrote a letter to the CEO of a company that I wanted to go and said that, it's delayed, I'm not able to get any job, so please consider me. All my friends laughed at it, but I thought there's nothing, I'm not going to lose anything by writing that note, and I got an interview. And that's the first job I had, which is in Allind, and I worked there for around 7 years, and I got married and then we decided to come to Bangalore, and I had my little son by then, so I was at home and while my husband started working in BPL. But then we didn't have enough money, we struggled a little bit because I was at home. So it's important that I get a job, and I applied to ASEA Brown Boveri and I secured a job and I started working in ASEA. I worked for 10 years there and I was a hardcore manufacturing engineer when there was an advertisement from Wipro saying that they are looking for non-technology engineers for technology. And I always love ambiguity, so I jumped and thought that I should secure that job, and I went after that job, got the job, and I worked in Wipro for around 9.5 years. After that, I got a very interesting call from ANZ saying that they are looking for a woman to lead one of their groups who has also manufacturing experience, and I thought that's a great opportunity, and I joined ANZ some around 13 years ago. And it was an interesting journey because I did not have core banking experience. I had banking technology experience, but the experience from ABB and Wipro helped me to really do a great job in ANZ. Why I say great is because I learned a lot, I developed a lot of people, I got great opportunities to grow in ANZ. And around 7 years back, I became the managing director of ANZ India. And 2 years back, I've become the group general manager for operations and services, which is leading the Bangalore, Chengdu and Manila teams of ANZ shared services. So I think I'm very happy where I am now. It's got lots of ups and downs like anyone, but overall I think it's successful.
Wow, that's great. What a wonderful journey to hear that. Congratulations for reaching to where you are now. So tell me a little bit about your journey as a CEO. What's some of the challenges that you encounter as a CEO?
See, ANZ is really an organization that supports women. I must tell you that I've never felt that I'm second to anybody, but there are a lot of challenges because when I was the MD of India, we are far away from the business because the business is in Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and building that business context in the people who work in India, I think that was a big challenge to start with. Ensuring that customer service is the same irrespective of the location where ANZ is, that's another challenge. Retaining people, retaining smart people, because if you look at the new generation that's working in ANZ and in any other country, they will look at constantly stimulating their brain, and so if there is a little bit of dullness, they will think of leaving the organization, and retaining great talent is tough. And getting women into senior leadership is also tough, because everyone is after the same set of women that are there in Bangalore or in India. So that's been tough too. Overall, you know, you're a little alone when you're at the top. So building friendship with your peers and trust with your peers, and also people in the whole of the bank, you know, building that network was a challenge when I started, but I think today I'm very happy where I am.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that those would be tough parts, you know, and especially with retention and maintaining stimulation for your employees. So you mentioned that ANZ hires people who are with disabilities, who are differently abled. So can you tell me how that happened or how that started?
So our purpose of the bank is to shape a world where people and communities thrive. And personally, it was very important to me to replicate the community that we live in within the bank. And I got a note from Mr. Raja of Vishesh requesting me to look at their candidates who are hearing and speech impaired. And we really wanted to break a barrier, saying that persons with hearing and speech impairment, they have other capability, you know, they cannot hear and speak, but they can do a banker's job. So we hired 6 of those of the candidates from Vishesh, and that was the start in ANZ. We hired them into mainstream jobs, and they started doing well. We had to make some adjustments in the training, etc., by really providing lot of visual aids rather than teaching, voice teaching. So I think that was something that we worked on, and we had to sensitize others, helping them at say good morning, for example. We can show sign language and say good morning. That makes everyone's life very good. And so we sensitized our trainers, we sensitized managers, we sensitized the security, we sensitized the people in the canteen, and it was more or less a very smooth ride for 6 of them. 5 of them are continuing with us, and that's the start. But I must say that we have a group of people who are absolutely motivated to hire persons with disability and women, and also LGBT community with the same fervor as we would hire anybody else, the so-called able person, because we believe that everybody deserves their right to live a life of honor. So this is not only in Bangalore, but it's also in Manila and Chengdu, and we firmly believe that a job is very critical for a person with disability. I've heard lot of stories of how education is difficult, but they get through that with the help of family. Job is harder, and therefore leaders have to really be on the forefront with the front foot up to show that they are going to hire persons with disability. And I think we have led the way in it, along with other organizations like Dell and Allegis.
Nice. That's great. That's beautiful how you collaborated with others and making sure that other companies are also inclusive of everyone, and that people in the workforce are exposed to diversity and it's provided in the workplace. Which 2 organizations outside of your work are you closest to, or that you like, and why?
I like only ANZ. No, I'm joking. I think there are lots of great organizations that I follow, but Intute is one organization that I follow very closely because it's a very woman friendly organization. There are more women than men in that organization, so I definitely follow Intute very closely. I also follow Wells Fargo because that's a huge banking corporation, and it has a big global in-house center in India, so there's a lot of learning from that organization. But I think, I look at startups and organizations that support children who are disabled or children with disability, and who are bringing them up. So I follow a lot of such organizations as well as NGOs like Enable India, Samarthanam, etc., more than the big organizations that maybe other CEOs follow.
That's great. Those are great organizations that you follow. Interesting. What has been your proudest moment in your CEO journey?
There are so many proud moments, but I think, when I got the job as managing director, and I knew that the mail would come by any time, and I was heading institutional at that time, sitting on the 3rd floor. And as soon as the mail hit the organization in India, in Bangalore, a huge number of the employees came rushing to my seat, and there was claps all over the floor, and I felt very happy at that moment, because it made me think that I am wanted and that they acknowledge that I can lead them. That's one of the proudest moments when I took over as managing director.
Wow, that's a great example. That's quite an inspiration. Is there a failure that stands out to you that came as a result of leading your team? Can you give me a good example of how you worked through that?
There are so many failures, but I can mention one. When I became the MD of NZ, and I think this was there even earlier, but I would have noticed it then. When a team member or a group of people bring me a document or a data for review or a set of data for review, I just look at the data and I spot what is wrong in that data. My eyes goes there, so I spot it, and then I will say, oh, your data doesn't look right. The person who is sitting on the other side trying to showcase what he or she has done just gets demotivated, because they have put in so much of effort and I have spotted the error. So I saw the body language many a times, and I got feedback from my team that this aspect of mine, even though the data is wrong, to point it out in the beginning as soon as the discussion starts is not a good leadership style and a good behavior. And I think that has been the failure that I took very much into my heart and into my mind. And now, even though I spot the mistake, I wait, I listen to the entire presentation, I motivate my team and congratulate them for all the nice things that are there in the presentation. But because I have a bias for execution and perfection, I surely point out that please look at this data and correct it if you think it's wrong. So I'm not trying to be diplomatic there, but I'm just trying to be positive and also show the areas of improvement. I think this has been a big failure when I started and when I was thriving to be a leader that's looked upon by my team. But over a period of time, when I do my introspection, I can see that I have improved on this behavior.
Amazing. Can you tell me about any of your interests outside of work?
I cook. Cooking is my biggest interest because there's a lot of creativity and color there. And I like to be the person at home who gets nice food for the family. My son, my daughter-in-law and my husband, they love what I make. So I cook a lot over the weekends, even on weekdays, because I love making traditional food and I don't want to lose the tradition that India has, where the cuisine is so vast. I don't want the family to lose that. So amidst all busy schedules, I love cooking. I also read, not a voracious reader, but surely I read HBR reviews and other documents, and now my passion is a lot on how to use technology for banking. Therefore, I read quite a bit on artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., to keep me relevant.
Wow, right. If you wrote a book about your life, what title would you give it?
I need to think. Maybe humility and fearlessness.
I like it. I would buy your book. So please write one.
Now I'm getting motivated to write. And I think why that name came to my mind is because when you achieve a lot of things in life, I want to be humble. And when I have lot of any fear or when I don't do well, I want to be fearless. So when I don't do well, I want to be fearless. So I thought that's my objective in life, to be humble and fearless. Is it making sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Very clearly. Yeah, I mean, I too am someone who has fears too. I mean, sometimes it's losing support systems or, you know, those types of things. It could be losing love or, you know, losing work or motivation. You know, all of those fears as humans. But as you say, we move on, we keep moving. Whatever happens, embrace it. Embrace what happens and presents itself to you.
Absolutely.
And move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Forward looking is very critical for success.
What would be your advice for women entrepreneurs or women who are striving to become CEOs? What would you offer them?
Women are always split between work and home, and we talk a lot about work-life balance. But I would say that you cannot balance anything with life. So it has to be work-life integration. So some of the things women have to give up so that they can do their work well, and women must learn to say no when they don't want to do certain things at work, and they must have the confidence to take up new things and strive to be the best rather than all the time thinking that I have to take second fiddle. I don't think that's needed. So show the confidence, live the life that you dream, get the work that you love, and be yourself. That's the most important thing, I think, that would help women to become CEOs.
Wow, that's a powerful message. And I will also take that to heart.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, speaking of the startup community and business, so what would be your advice for a startup for a startup coming to you with a project? I know financing can be a struggle. So what would you advise them coming from the banking perspective?
So the first thing that startups must understand is that the bank is seeing a lot of startups. It's not their company alone, but the bank is seeing lot of proposals coming from startups. So always an idea in a startup will be with lot of passion and energy and emotion, because it's an idea, it's something that has come in the mind of a person. So many of the business cases will be around that passion and around the interest to make it successful, definitely. But there won't be any strong business case for telling when the startup will break even or how it can be monetized and how the idea can be implemented. I think a lot is in the way you write the business case and convince the bank that you are worth investing in. You know, it's like any other investor. Bank is also an investor. So if that's done very well, I think a startup will stand a big chance to get the funding.
That's great. I agree with that. Yeah. To focus on the making money, what the return is, that tends to be missing from those situations. So I think combining the two, the passion and the business aspect of it. And again, I appreciate you coming out for the talk show, sharing your stories, sharing your perspective, and sharing time with me. It was absolutely an honor to have you here today again.
Thank you. It was great speaking to you. Thank you.